Today, I wanted to talk about something that is really difficult for a lot of spouses, and that is this fear that they are going to make bad decisions. They're going to make the wrong decision. It often comes up around whether they are going to stay in their house or not, but it could involve finances, it could involve lifestyle choices, career changes. Any of those things could certainly be on the table, and it makes them incredibly anxious because they're very afraid they're going to make the wrong choice. These questions come up very early, but in the first few months of grief, you do not have the juice, nobody does, to make good decisions. All of your energy is focused on the loss and the yearning and all of the ruminating about everything that happened. That's what the first few months are like. And to try to make a decision in that mix is really, really hard. Now, there are extenuating circumstances, certainly. Sometimes it's financial, sometimes you're in an apartment you need to get out of, sometimes your physical health is not what it was and your spouse was taking care of you. So sometimes there are really legitimate reasons you need to make a quick decision. But generally speaking, most of us recommend at least waiting until after the first anniversary to make any major decisions. If you can. If you can't, you're going to do the best you can. But I would really encourage you to wait a bit. So these are things you're thinking about, whether to stay in your house or how you're going to handle the finances and that sort of thing. They certainly come up early, and it's fine to be thinking about them. It's fine to be contemplating. It's fine to even go out and explore. I had one client who lived in a relatively large house and she thought it was too big for her. And after her husband died, she was thinking, I should move. It's just too big, it's too much to take care of. And yet, in the course of the first year, she went house hunting. She looked at apartments. She looked at senior living situations. She looked at all sorts of different things and basically came to the conclusion that none of them were going to work, that she was going to stay in her house. And I think largely because of her gardens. You know, she had gardens she'd been tending for 50 years. And she had a bench out there in the backyard she would sit on, and she didn't want to leave that. So she basically closed up the second floor and lived on the first floor and decided to stay. And last I heard, she was doing well. So, by all means, go out and explore. I get it's hard. You spent decades with a spouse, partner that you made decisions with. You had somebody to bounce these things off of. And now you're making them by yourself. And that's a big deal too. It's a really big deal. And it takes some time to get comfortable with that. So, 7 ways you can end up making really bad decisions as a surviving spouse. Number one is thinking that you will continue grieving. Many people are afraid to let go of the acute grief because they feel that's their last connection to the person who died. And in fact, that's not the connection at all. The connection is with the love, and the love transcends the death. And ultimately, that's what you have as you move through your grief. You have the love that you shared, it is still there. But when you stay in your grief or afraid to move beyond the grief, you short circuit all of the possibilities. It's like you're putting yourself in a box and all you can see is the box. You can't see what's beyond the box. And you need to take some time to look over the box, around the box, wherever. Take a look and see what else might be out there. So that's mistake number one, is hanging on to the grief. A corollary of that would be to try to move through the grief too quickly. And don't do that either. Listen to that internal sense of what you need. It's going to tell you where you need to go. So, number two is feeling frustrated because your life isn't getting back to normal. The real problem with this is that the normal you want to get back to doesn't exist anymore. You've been through a death, you've been through the grief, all of that is kind of weaving itself into who you are and what your normal is going to be going forward. You know, people often say, you know, we're learning a new normal, which is true, but it's usually said with this big sigh of, oh, it's just a new normal and I just need to get used to it. And you can do that. That's not what I'm suggesting, however. I am suggesting that you actively integrate all of this into a new life that you create that in time will become your new normal. And it can be filled with joy. Okay? So don't expect to go back to what was. And in many ways, your normal before is like your foundation. You're going to build on that. So it's not going to be the same, but you still have that foundation. That makes sense. Hopefully it does. So, number three, making decisions too soon. And that's often because you're uncomfortable with the uncertainty of it. In the first year of grief, everything feels uncertain and overwhelming, and you just want to get back to some certainty, so you make a decision too soon. That's not helpful. As I said in the beginning, you're not a good decision maker. So the real challenge is to sit with not knowing. You can ask the questions, explore the questions, but don't try to answer them too fast. The answers will come to you. The decisions will come to you. It will get clear when it's time. Timing really, really matters. So it will come in time. So, and number fourth mistake is allowing yourself to just kind of drift into a new life without really examining your choices or thinking about what it is you really want. And a lot of people do this. They don't know what they want. They haven't really even asked the question. And they just kind of drift into a life, and it's an okay life, but it's not as joyful or meaningful as it could be with a more conscious choice being made. And number five, this is one of my pet peeves, defaulting to what your kids want. What your kids want is not necessarily in your best interest. You are their surviving parent, and many of them would like to wrap you up in cotton just to keep you safe. And unless there are physical reasons that you cannot get back out into the world, they are doing you a tremendous disservice. And a lot of kids will come race in and take over the finances and take over everything. I even had one client, she had to call a lawyer and make it legal that they couldn't take over these things because they were just swooping in and trying to take over everything. And she was still quite with it and active and physically able, and she didn't need that kind of help, at least not yet. I have tremendous compassion for the kids. I was a kid who lost both parents, and I certainly understand it, but it's not helpful to you. So don't default to what they want. Talk to them about it. You can certainly consult with them, but you may have to set real boundaries about what you want to do. Okay? It's a hard one. And it gets very complicated, but keep this in mind. Do not let them run the show. So, all right. That was five. We're moving right along. Number six is ignoring your emerging sense of self. Your identity when your spouse was still alive was very much tied up in being a wife or a husband. Our identity is tied up in our relationships. They reflect back to us who we are. And that's fine. That's what's supposed to happen. There's no problem with that. The problem is that once they die, that sense of self starts cracking. It may still be there, or only parts of it may still be there. You don't know. You need to explore all of that. But one of the ways to do that is really to get reacquainted with your core self. Some people call it higher self, some people call it soul self. But that part of you that really never changes. And so one of the challenges here is to get reacquainted with that part of yourself and allow it to inform your identity going forward. Draw from it. It is a fountain of wisdom and unlimited abundance, emotional abundance. It has so much to offer you, and allow it to inform your identity. And if you're making decisions from that place more than your personal self, you're going to make better decisions. You just are. So that is number 6. Pay attention to that part of yourself. Number 7 is being unwilling to experiment. And as scary as experimenting can be, it doesn't have to be big, jump off a cliff kind of experiments. You can put your big toe in the water and just try things out without making a big commitment. But this is a perfect time to experiment with what you might want, what you would like to do, even where you might like to live. All of those things. If there are new hobbies you want to explore, or volunteer things you want to do, you can try all those things out. But a lot of people, especially as we age, we kind of get sclerosed here, and we aren't comfortable experimenting. So let's experiment. What do you have to lose, really? What do you have to lose? A little bit of time. And yeah, that gets more precious as we get older, for sure, but it can be fun too. It can be fun trying things out. So that's the other mistake, is just not being willing to experiment. So these are all ways that people end up making decisions that don't serve them well. It's not a complete list, but it's a good one. This death and your grief have changed some things, but not all things. And the life you plan may no longer be possible or even desirable without your spouse. So you need to re-examine all of that and make very conscious choices, and not just drift into something that's okay. All right, that's it for today. Bye.